on people's bodies and keeping them fit and so on. So he was a really interesting character and obviously an inspiration for me. And I'd always like kind of was a square peg in a round hole. Like I would get these jobs and I don't know, I think I was fired like 7, 8 times. But I would work my ass off. It would be hard. It was always hard for them to fire me because I was such a hard worker and I always took on so much, but I became passionate about everything and it became personal, right? And then they were like, okay, you know, you better go find your own job, your own company. And so I kept getting fired. I kept getting fired because like I cared so much about my work. And then I realized, okay, like maybe this is a sign, like I should just start my own company. And my last job at Virgin, I was working at Virgin Mobile. I was running postpaid at Virgin. And I got fired at Virgin basically because the CTO of the company and the CMO of the company were fighting over who I should report to. And this is what happens in these big corporations. You spend all your time, you know, writing these reports and going to meetings and writing emails. And after a while, I just got fed up and just was like, look, you guys, you know, make up your minds here. And, you know, working at Virgin was like working at Bell. So, you know, you either have to fall in line or you risk losing your job. So I lost my job, which was the greatest thing that ever happened to me because that's when I met my husband and decided to start my own company. And it was really great. The way we started was we looked for a problem that we felt really passionate about solving. We had a ton of skills. My partner, who's also my husband, is a pioneer in mobile technology. Like basically he invented payment systems, mobile payment systems. So I was really lucky to have a CTO, like a real technology leader, like part of my family and my partner, because I think when you go into an entrepreneurial journey, you really need to trust your partner. Like, you know, people say you get married, like it is a form of marriage. So when you have the papers that tie you together, it's, you know, it's a bond, but that comes with its own complexity. There's actually a large number of women, husband and wife teams that are very successful at running companies for that exact reason. Like Wattpad, for example, it's a husband and wife team and grew that company. There's just a ton. But anyway, so we saw a problem, we were passionate about it, we decided we're gonna fix it. And the first thing we did was we went to find grant capital. So we went to see, okay, what grants can we qualify for? And at the time we qualified for a grant called the CMF, the Canadian Media Fund, which was one of the largest technology funds at the time. So this was in 2010, the App Store had been around for like 2 years or 1 year. It was just the beginning of the launch of the App Store. And that grant was there to really fund technology companies that were taking risks. It was a time where to be able to qualify for the grant, you had to prove that your technology may not actually work. So we were super lucky. We got about $500,000 in funding. It was very, very competitive. We had to really describe our idea, our business case of what we were doing, a problem we were solving. But that sort of kick-started the company. And we've been running and developing and changing and pivoting and learning and making mistakes for the last 10 years almost.
Wow. I think that just summed up everything that we needed to know. Thank you so much for sharing that. Things that I heard you say, you know, that round peg in a square hole, I think, you know, as entrepreneurs, it's oftentimes thinking outside of the box and, you know, pushing what that status quo. And so I can definitely relate to that in terms of, you know, some additional elements. You talked about identifying a problem and being passionate about it. I think for entrepreneurs, it is so important and something we talk about oftentimes here. What is the problem you're solving? So to hear that, you know, to hear you say that, I think it resonates with our community deeply. You also talked about finding partnerships and building trust. It's about building trust, and that's a huge takeaway. many people here that we support are ones that are solopreneurs. So they're starting out on their own, but you know, as they move into that phase of who can I bring on board, it is so important, as you say, it's finding that right person to support you along your journey. Thank you. That was really powerful. My next question, and you talked about it a little, if you could just, you know, talk to us about that pivoting and changing. We know that COVID happened to all of us. Maybe you could talk to us the impacts of COVID on your business as it was pre-COVID, and you know, what did that pivot or impact look like for you now and in a post-COVID world?
I think we're really lucky because we're not in a position where we need to be reactionary because of COVID. And that's because for the last 2 years, we've been working on our pivot. So we're okay. I think for us, the main challenge remains, which is what you touched on, is like the problem you're solving. And this is the continuous thing that you're always looking at. It's always changing. And you're always trying to better understand the problem you're solving. And the most important part is finding the economic value in the problem you're solving. So you can have different problems you're solving. You can have a social problem you're solving, which is what we're doing. We initially had a social problem. How do we make motorcycles more accessible? How do we make motorcycles safer? You know, motorcycle riders are 5 times more likely to be killed on the road. How do we make our roadways more accessible to other types of vehicles other than cars? Basically, our roadways are super discriminatory. Right? If you're not in a 4+ wheeled vehicle, you can't use the roadways safely. So we had a really big social value, but we had an environmental value, right? We were getting people to get out of these gigantic cars. You know, so many people are alone in their car, but we didn't have an economic value. And what we needed to do to sustain ourselves is to find that economic value and tie it into the social and environmental value, right? So what we did was we polled our community. We understood. We started to get a deeper understanding of our data. Started to really understand how we wanted to differentiate, like what makes us different. And then articulating that economic value and then actually executing on that economic value. And if I could do anything like differently, I think that I would be thinking about the economic value in tandem with the social value and the environmental value from day one. And if you're not thinking about that from day one, you're at a disadvantage, because what happens with a lot of Canadian startups is we rely a lot on grants, and every time you apply for a grant, you sort of like have to pivot a little bit to take advantage of that grant, right? You have to do a little bit something different, and it can take you off your course. But at the same time, it's what sustains you and allows you to hire people and to contribute to the education, like to the education of workers, right? In the technology sector, because the only way that we're developing talent is by, you know, giving them access to small businesses and entrepreneurial companies. That's where a lot of people get their experiences. They start off in the technology industry. So it's an important part of the ecosystem. But like I said, the pivot, if anything, is you're always pivoting because you always need to find the economic value. And if you do not cannibalize yourself, if you're not like, okay, how am I going to disrupt myself? Somebody's going to disrupt you. So looking for that, I think that trifecta and pivoting towards it is what I wish we would have done a lot earlier. But COVID and, you know, the confluence of so many things at time in our maturity of our company has forced us to more intensely think about that triangle, what I call the triangle. It doesn't really answer your question, because I think if I go into like COVID and everything, I mean, there's so much to talk about. It's like, I think the biggest thing though is like the changing landscape of work and talent. When you're working as the biggest challenge for me, when you're working as a small business and you're working with like, you might be forced to work with some people who are not super experienced, and those people have a harder time working remotely and working from home, working at a distance. When you've got someone close to you and they don't have a ton of experience, you can nurture them more, you can work with them. But now you've got this distance and you're just seeing each other on video, and they have to be able to work separately and independently. It's like a whole other rethinking of how you're going to get the most productivity out of a team. And so I think that really has been the biggest impact with COVID, is like, oh my God, how are we going to keep momentum going, and how are we going to keep our productivity up?
Thank you so much for sharing that.
I hope that helps.
A lot. I think
Okay,
from you gave the full spectrum, and really to understand the terminology that you were describing, that is a buzzword, but a word of impact, is social enterprise, right? So you talk about that triple bottom line, the social, environmental, and profit. I say, and we say, the triple P, so the people, the planet, the profits, and really considering all of those things from inception as you're building. So many valuable nuggets there in terms of, being able to listen to the market. And you mentioned, polling and asking questions to make sure that you're understanding the problem in a real and visceral way, that you can make a positive impact in that space. So thank you so much for sharing that. I wonder if you could just take a moment to tell us a little bit about your application and how your application is addressing the problem you have identified.
So if you guys have heard of Waze, yeah. So imagine Waze, but for motorcycle riders, with the added benefit of OnStar. So you can find the best roads, the safest roads to go on. You can find other people who are like-minded like you that you can ride with. You can learn from your community. And in the event of a motorcycle crash, you can let other people know where you are so they can come and find you. You can let your family and friends sort of relax a little bit, because they know that if something should go wrong, they'll find you. And from a social value, we're really making it possible for people who may have not previously had access to a two-wheel vehicle because it might be too scary, or they might be afraid, or they don't know, anybody who's a motorcycle rider, and, like, gives them an opportunity to connect. From an environmental value, we're saying, hey, you don't need the weight of a car, the emissions of a car to use the road systems and get around. There's alternate forms of transportation. And then from an economic value, what we're saying is, hey, every motorcycle rider needs insurance to be on the road. And motorcycle riders are seen as they're kind of like discriminated against, because people believe like this narrative that motorcycle riders are these like yahoos who are, looking for thrills and danger. It's not the case. Motorcycle riders are adventurers. They are really pioneers of travel and discovery. And when you're on a motorcycle, you're really focused, so your senses are really alive, and it gives you a really more interesting feeling of control and freedom. So it's not only a form of transportation, it's like a passion. And then people sort of, their identity is formed by the bike and the community they ride with. It's sort of like, it's like when you are passionate about something, you look at the world through a certain lens, and that's what happens with motorcycling. And to be able to have a place where you feel comfortable and to explore that passion and meet other people who share that passion, really get better at your skill, because motorcycling is a skill. It's not like driving, like, oh, I don't need to take any more lessons or learn how to drive. It's like you're always learning and always improving your skill, because it is risky. So it's an all-in-one tool to help you ride better, have the confidence to ride further, and to feel safer.
That's amazing. I want to just give the folks that are on with us a chance right now. If you could put in the chat, if you were your favorite bike brand, or if you're a bike rider, your bike of choice. When I was 18 years old, I love bikes. My bike of choice is Harley Davidson. I'm obsessed. I saved enough money. A guy down the street had a bike for sale, and I said, Mom, I worked, I saved my money, I'm gonna buy this bike. And she freaked out on me just for that, because her brother, my dad once was in a bike accident, and it's like, you're not going to die on a bike. And so that was like, I feel now going to her with your application, it may calm some nerves, but every time I talk about a bike, I can just feel the hair on the back of her head stand up and like give me the eye, no, don't touch a bike. But no, it's really powerful to hear the power of your app and what you're doing in this space. I see some.
Yeah, I just sent a link to everybody. I did an interview with a podcaster. His name is Bruce Philp. He's very interesting. He invented the ING Direct brand, and he's also one of my mentors. And he started riding motorcycles after I started the company, and now he's a podcaster. So he did an interview with me about riding, and it's in that podcast. And I also shared a picture of me on my motorcycle. So yeah, I think what you said, Chris Beth, is, we're really trying to battle this narrative that motorcycles are unsafe. And yes, they were a lot unsafer back in the day. But now with modern technology, motorcycles are they're way safer than they have ever been. The reason why motorcycle riders used to ride in groups is because your bike could just break down at any time. What's happened with and you need help. What's happened with motorcycles is motorcycles are so reliable now that people are riding alone, and they feel lonely. They don't know where to find other people. So it's kind of like a real societal shift that we've seen, and so this is where technology fills the gaps of bringing people together to combat loneliness. At the end of the day, that's the power of social media.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing, and that's an amazing picture, by the way. I wanted to just start by opening it up for questions from our audience. Noreen, you could read your own question, or do you want me to? I wanted to start with your question. I thought it would be appropriate.
Yeah, you can go for it.
Okay, so what is the most important advice / support you've received that accelerated your entrepreneurial journey?
I think that Janet Bannister from Real Ventures, do you know her? Have you heard of her? Janet Bannister. She's really good. If anybody has a chance to listen to her speak, she's always doing things. She started Kijiji. Do you guys know Kijiji? Yeah, she basically came up with Kijiji, made it happen, and then sold it like maybe 5 or 6 years ago, and then joined Real Ventures as a venture capitalist. And so she just goes around talking about VCs and venture capital. And she has so many nuggets, like so many different things that she has added to my way of thinking, because fundamentally, when you're working in a technology space, you know, you've got to be thinking about scalability, and to be able to scale, you need venture capital. And what do venture capitalists look for? How to find the right venture capitalists? What does that partnership mean, and how to structure it? I think she does an amazing job at communicating in really simple terms. Like, you can kind of tell from the way I talk, like, you know, I'm really interested in like getting to the core, and that's Janet. She gets, you know, she gets right to the core. So I think I would definitely recommend anybody who's interested in entrepreneurship to be thinking about venture capital, like right out of the gate, and then go on YouTube, you know, go listen to anywhere you can get access to hear Janet speak, and you'll really be a lot better for it.
Awesome. Thank you. You mentioned mentors and, you know, finding these key people. What role has mentors played in your business development?
Yeah, mentorship is hard. You know, everybody talks about mentorship, and it's like, it's a lot of work to maintain mentor relationships, and it takes a long time. And it's not like, oh, you know, at first I thought, oh, I've got to find someone and say, will you be my mentor? And then they'll say, okay, I'll be your mentor. No, it's not how it works. It's more like you connect with someone and you ask them questions, and you maintain and you give them updates on what you're doing, and you keep them engaged. And then, you know, you pull nuggets out, and they help you. But you got to really think through, like, what areas of expertise do I need? And then really, I think the best way to look at mentorship is, if I wanted to apprentice with someone, you know, who would that person be? And then go out and see if I can build a relationship with them just by like asking them questions on a regular basis, even if they're over email, even if they're over LinkedIn. And then over time, you know, oh, I have a mentor relationship, rather than like kind of getting yourself too overwhelmed about this and that and getting so much structure around mentoring. Being involved in the industry for so long, I just find that for me doesn't work. Of course, I am, you know, like a point of one, so up to everybody else. But what I would say is, find somebody you think you can learn from, and then just start chatting with them on a regular basis, and then offering them updates and asking real questions. What happens a lot with some people who want my mentorship, they'll be like, so tell me about, you know, this, or they don't plan, they don't have any real questions about their business that I can help them solve. And it's just like, look, if you don't have time to do the work to think about, you know, how I can help you, how can I possibly help you? So yeah, mentorship for me, it's kind of like mentorship fatigue a bit. Like, I'd like to see the whole mentorship, like, it's got to be made personal for each individual. And I could go on, but I won't.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. I know your background is in marketing. Can you just talk to us about how you build a tribe around your idea and communicate to the folks that you're working with, the customers?
How do you create a tribe around your idea? I think you've got to always be delivering value. And part of the reason that I think, you know, we had a bit of a dip, and we, you know, we had trouble figuring out our trajectory exactly, is because we had to figure out where we were delivering value and who we were delivering value to and what the value was, right? Because the challenge with being a motorcycle rider is that everything that we did, we built for ourselves. And that was a mistake, because the community is so vast. Like, the faction, there might be, you know, 5, 6, 7, 800 different types of motorcycle riders. if you really break down the community, it's super vast. For as much diversity as there is on the planet, there's that much diversity in motorcycle riders. And to build something that is like, for me and my, myself and my friends is really a good starting point, but it's not a way to run a business. You've got to really understand all your different customers, who you're targeting, what they want, what the value is you're delivering for them. So as early as possible is like to not use yourself as the target audience. And it's contrary to what all the stories are about entrepreneurship. Oh, so-and-so wanted to solve a problem, so they solved it for themselves. And all the VCs love those stories. Oh, you wanted to solve this problem for yourself. Well, the problem with solving the problem for yourself is like, that's an audience of 1 or 2 people, so you want to make sure that you're looking widely, and you're looking at all the different types of audiences and planning ahead for that, and knowing that when you start your business, the audience that you have, or the tribe or the community that you're delivering value to is going to be small. And then the community that you deliver value to in the future, for it to be much bigger, your audience could be completely different. So the customer you have today might be a completely different customer at scale. And sometimes having to think about that is a bit of a brain, but thinking about that as early as possible is really important.
Awesome. If you were to start your business now, what would you have done differently than when you started?
Definitely have a revenue model out of the gate. We didn't have enough thinking about the revenue model out of the gate, and we should have been pivoting to find that revenue model. And I think because we were just more interested in the R&D side of it, which is really good. You have to be interested in the R&D, but we should have had a more aggressive parallel revenue model that we were developing, at the same time. Yes, in-app purchase, which is what we built our revenue model on at the beginning, is great, but like, in-app purchase is not going to make most companies a billion-dollar company, because you're giving 30% away to Apple and Android. Like, think about yourselves. When's the last time you paid for an in-app purchase on your phone? It's too difficult to build a billion-dollar business that way. So you've got to be, ready to have both tracks, your revenue model and your R&D.
Awesome. Thank you. What steps did you take in order to build your platform and reach a worldwide audience?
Relentless hard work. And where I find is, you're going to work so hard. You're going to work harder than you've ever worked in your bleeping life when you're an entrepreneur. And if you think you worked hard at a job and you're like, this is what I was like at Virgin. I'm working so hard at Virgin. I'm like, why don't I just work for myself? I'm going to kill myself for Virgin. Might as well kill myself for my own company, right? I had no idea. I had no idea how hard I was going to have to bleep and work. Like, Jesus Christ, every weekend. And you can't stop. It's like, okay, you got to keep going. So you got to be ready. You got to be ready. And you got to be thinking ahead, because you're going to run out of steam. Like, you need to bring people on. That's why you need venture capital. You need investors. You need angels, because all of these people early on have an invested interest in your company and invested interest in growing. What we did wrong, or what I did wrong, was my co-founder, he had a really big exit previously, like $300 million. And he was like, I had to give up so much to the VCs. You know, he was kind of like VC shy. It's like, oh, I don't want to deal with those guys. And so we held out a lot before, you know, accepting venture. And I believe that that was a mistake because, yeah, you're holding on to more equity. We have got a lot of equity. For a company that's been around as long as we have a lot of equity. But at the same time, we don't have enough people with a vested interest in our company to make it scale as quickly as possible. And then when you go to VCs later and they're like, well, you know, you tried to make a go at this and you haven't raised a ton of capital, like what's wrong with your company? So you just have to be thinking about all these things. I don't know if I'm answering your question now, I'm off track. But anyway, it's really hard work. You're gonna get tired. So you got to be ready to bring people in to support you so that when you do get tired, you've got a team around you. You can't be thinking, oh, I'm going to just do this on my own for whatever. And it takes a while to get a big business off the ground. You know, this expression like, yeah, it took me 10 years to become an overnight success.
Yeah. That's powerful. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I guess related to what you're talking about, can you talk to us a little bit about tips or strategies to maintain, you know, sound mental health as an entrepreneur?
Am I the right person to tell you about sound mental health as an entrepreneur? You know what? I think everybody needs a hobby. And what happens when you're an entrepreneur is your hobby is your work. And you need to be thinking about, okay, how am I going to change my ideas? What do I like to do? And, you know, really force yourself to get out and do it. Is it yoga? Is it exercise? Whatever. And really try to stick with it. I think exercise is the biggest thing that I've failed at because, you know, I'm like, oh, I don't have time. Oh, I feel so tired, but it's a cycle. And I think exercise, if you can keep exercising, I think it really will go a long way to sustaining your mental health and your ability to deal with things. Because the hardest part with mental health is when you're working on something that you care about, you get emotional. You get emotional when you're dealing with people. You get emotional about things that related to your work. And when you get emotional, your capacity to make good decisions goes way down. So your heart rate gets elevated, you get the fight or flight, you get emotional, they don't understand, whatever. And then try making a good decision in that state. Nah. So what you want to do is like stay positive, think positively. You know, I'm personally working on zero negativity. As you can tell in this conversation, is not working 100%, but it's getting better. So like trying to stay positive and recognizing, okay, I'm getting emotional. I'm not going to make a good decision. How can I take the emotion out of this? How, you know, okay, I need more exercise. So I think mental health is something that you're going to overlook until it's a little late. So it's better to be thinking about it and putting it into your routine so that you can overcome. Because, you know, if you can't overcome a little bit of emotion, how are you going to run a board meeting? You know, if you can't overcome like a disagreement, you know, how are you going to make a big hiring decision? If you can, you know, so you got to keep everything in context and say, okay, I got to keep calm. I got to stay positive, and I got to take the emotion out of things so I can make good decisions. And whatever it takes, walking, painting, music, you know, do it.
No, thank you so much for sharing that. You were talking earlier about VCs and raising capital and all of these things in order if you're thinking about scaling your business. We do have entrepreneurs within our community that's really interested in getting in front of VCs, getting venture capital. Do you have any, you know, best practices and preparation tips that they should be doing before they get in that room with the VCs? And then I have a second question tied to that as well.
Well, I'm probably the wrong person to ask about VCs because I have been talking about raising like around for a long time and I haven't been successful yet. So any advice I give to someone might not be great advice, but the advice that I got is you're going to have to talk to 100 VCs before you get your first deal. And it only takes one person to say yes. Other advice that I think is really valid is investing in the angel community and going after the angels. For me, it's like, there's a lot of reasons why I didn't want to go angel, but, you know, maybe for another time. But I think VCs care about you making them money, and you care about finding the right VC to help you make money. And at the beginning, I was like, oh, I was talking to all VCs. I was ready to take money from anybody. And then I was like, wait a minute, how is this VC going to help me? You know, like, what's in it for me? And that's where you got to really be thinking, like, can the VC help me get from seed to A? Can the VC help me solve a problem with my business that is preventing me from scaling? Do they have the expertise? Can the VC open doors for me? Like, basically you're saying, okay, I'm going to become a partner with you in my business, especially in the early days, because they're going to take a bigger chunk and really be involved. You know, basically, do I want you as my partner, and what have you got to offer, and can we work well together, and how are we going to get to the next round or to the next exit? So I think, you know, this whole VC question is just, it's a really tough one. It's an ongoing one for me. And like I said, I haven't been successful yet, but I had to make a decision in my mind I was going to raise, because for a long time it was like, do I, should I, will I, can I? And then at one point I had to say to myself, you are going to raise, you're going to do it. And I had to make a decision that I was going to do it and remove the doubt. And I think it's an internal thing for every entrepreneur, a journey that they have to go through on their own, and dig deep and discover what that means, and then prepare for it. And as far as the VCs go, you know, they're gambling, right? So like, it's roulette. So you meet somebody and they know what they're doing and they understand your business. And if they know how you can make money out of your business in a way that maybe, you know, adds a nugget to what you're doing, that's the right VC, I think, that you need to find, right? Like, so again, I can go on here, but it's difficult because a lot of people don't talk about really raising capital and interacting with VCs, especially women. Like, there's this one fund, for example, like the women's, the Women in Tech Fund from the BDC. So for a while, like, this was, everybody was promoting it, and everybody was talking about it. And then when you get into a room with female entrepreneurs who are going after money from the BDC, no one was talking. Nobody. What they were facing, how it was going, what they were being asked, like, it's like a cone of silence. So sometimes it can be really impenetrable to really understand what's going on and how things are operating and how they're working. And anyway, I can go on for days about what I've learned, but I will save you all. But if you have questions for me, like specific questions, or if somebody wants to talk to me, give them some ideas or help or whatever, like I said, I'm happy to do that.
Awesome. My follow-up question around VC interaction, we had a panel a little while ago, and one of the VCs on the panel mentioned that founders aren't aware that once VC starts getting involved, you know, that equity, you know, goes within the company, and within 3 to 5 years, the original founders sometimes aren't the founder of the company. And so I guess one of my question related to that is, how do you structure your company in order to hold on to it in some way? Or is, as founders, if you're thinking about scaling, should we be thinking about exiting the company right off of the bat as well?
Okay, so when you're part of Techstars, so we're part of Techstars, we were invested in by Techstars, early VC. Techstars will always tell you, don't think about your exit. Don't be going into a VC meeting and think about your exit. When you're talking to VCs, they don't want you to be talking about your exit, because then they'll be like, oh, these guys are just, they're just in it for the exit. They're not really in it for the long haul. It's kind of like a tightrope, right? Because what you're doing is you're in it to grow value for your business, and you're in it to grow value for what you've created. And if it means you're gonna not be running the company anymore, then, but it scales and you've created value, great. For you, it's a personal decision. If you don't want to do that, maybe you're running a lifestyle business. Maybe you're not running a scalable business. But keep in mind that most entrepreneurs, they'll run 2, 3, 4, 5 businesses. They won't be successful. They won't hit it really big until it's their 5th business. So what I would say is, if you can, yes, it's personal. Yes, running a business is personal. It's like giving birth to a baby. It's like having an arm, like it's personal. But if you're thinking about, okay, what's the best interest of this company? How can I give this company the legs to grow and to to scale? And if I can make money off of it, and other people can make money off of it, then I've succeeded, right? I've built something, and then I can go on to build something else. That's how I see it. I think if you're trying to hold on to stuff and, you want to keep it close, and, it doesn't really fit with a scalable business. But again, point of view of one, I'm sure if you had 100 people, they'd probably give you 100 different answers to that question. It's something like you just have to decide for yourself. For me, I think I really want to build equity. I want to build capital. I want to make this business profitable. I want this to go on and be bigger than me. And that means that if I'm not the right person to run this company and to take it to $1 billion company, then I want to find the right person who can, because it's just like the next level, the graduation of my company, right? But then you go and say, oh, well, look what happened with Steve Jobs and Apple. Yeah, look what happened to so many companies. They get acquired and the vision gets lost. But the reason they get acquired is because they were competitive, they were a competitor, and the company that acquired them wanted to remove that competition. So if you want to maintain your product, you want to be an alternative, you want to be an option, that's another path, right? So it's hard to answer that question. You got to just weigh everything for yourself and for your business and stay focused on creating value. Let that drive, let that drive your decision making. Economic value, social value, environmental value. Use that to help you make a decision.
Thank you so much for sharing that as well. I see we have another question from Davis. How you see electric motorcycles in the marketplace?
Electric motorcycles are going to be a revolution. Because, like back in the 60s, there were like, I don't know, 100 car manufacturers. So many people were inventing all different cars, and then now all those car companies got consolidated into a small few. Now what we're seeing with electric motorcycles is like the cost to produce electric vehicles, electric motorcycles is going to go down. You're going to see a lot of manufacturers making bikes. You're going to see women getting into motorcycling like never before because they're so much more accessible. They're not loud, they're light, they're zippy, they're fun, they look like toys. You feel great, you feel confident, they're connected. So I think there's going to be a total explosion of electric vehicles. Are going to change everything for motorcycling, because anybody who was on a bicycle, who felt confident on a bicycle, could graduate to an electric motorcycle, could go further distances. I think COVID did a really great job for making motorcycles more more feasible, right? Because a lot of people don't want to take public transit, but you want to still get around. Motorcycles are an amazing way to do that. Not only that, but it's like a tremendous community and a really awesome skill. So I think electric motorcycles are going to see us enter the golden age of motorcycling. And in the future, when every vehicle on the road is autonomous, the only way that you're ever going to really enjoy driving is on two wheels. So we're really excited about the future of two-wheel transport. The secret is making it safer, right? Who doesn't want to ride a motorcycle? Everybody wants to ride a motorcycle. It's just they're dangerous. And so if we can reduce the danger, increase the safety, it will increase the accessibility. And I think we will revolutionize roads for different forms of transport rather than, you know, discriminating against small vehicles like bicycles and motorcycles on our roads.
Awesome. We just have a few more minutes before we wrap up for our time, but I'm wondering if you could make any book recommendations that entrepreneurs should be, you know, a must read.
Yeah. Well, I think you guys know about this one.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's a good one. It's dense, but there's lots of pictures. So that helps. The other book that I would recommend is, I can't remember, I don't have it handy right now. I think I have it downstairs, is just Raising Capital. It was written by the guys who started Techstars. Actually, I'll send it to you. And it's kind of like a step-by-step guide on how to raise capital. You read the book, you got all the pieces. And really like reading Techstars, the Techstars blogs, and the Y Combinator blogs are really a great way, because you know you're gonna be able to learn from people who've made all the mistakes. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that. We have about time for one more question. Does anyone want to put a question in the chat or unmute? I know a lot of valuable content was given and shared. I see, Davis, you're on. I'm guessing you have a question. By all means.
Yeah. Thank you, Maureen, for very amazing entrepreneur tips. Personally, I do some business regards to motorcycles, like conversions to electric, and wanted to know have you ever seen like hybrid motorcycles, and maybe what do you think about those?
Yeah. Anything on two wheels, good. Four wheels, bad. Two wheels, good. That's what I say. We often get kind of contacted by different companies that are selling into the motorcycle ecosystem, and it's not really our area of expertise. We're more on the software side. So we want to be able to connect to every motorcycle, new, aftermarket. We want people to be able to talk to their motorcycle and have their motorcycle talk to them. So we're really more focused on the software side. So the hardware side, I think people are going to innovate, they're going to customize, they're going to expand. I'm not really in that business. So, but if you have, you know, a question or you want to break into that in the manufacturing space, whatever, you know, I can definitely try to connect you. All you need to do is, like, say you want to connect with someone, go on to my LinkedIn and search, because I've got like, I don't know, 5,000-6,000 connections in business and startup and motorcycling. And then you can ping me and say, hey, Marina, could you introduce me to X? And then what I would do is I would contact X person, say, hey, I have this person who's really interested in meeting you, connecting with you, and you would write me like a little blurb about why you want to connect with that person. And then I would broker the connection. So it's kind of like a warm introduction that I'm happy to give.
Awesome. I want to say, Marina, thank you so much for your time here with us today. It has been awe-inspiring for myself, and I'm sure the folks on, I see heads nodding. So, you know, raw truths about entrepreneurship, and just, you know, really valuable content about knowing that problem, being in a value creation space when it comes to your social enterprise, really thinking not only just about the social and environmental impacts, but also about that economic impact and growth there as well. And, you know, really understanding yourself, one, and understanding what type of business that you want to create. If, as you mentioned, if it is that $1 million business, if it is that, you know, worldwide global impact business, you really have to be thinking strategically. And the recommendations with the book that you suggested, I think, would definitely point us in a direction to keep learning and growing about that as well.
Mm-hmm.
So for the folks that are on the call, if it's your first time, my colleagues Cole and Simi will be putting the link to EDGE programs. You can learn a little bit more about us and ways in which you can get connected. We'll also have a feedback form that we will put in the chat. We'd love to hear back how the session was for you, and we'll get an opportunity to share some comments with our facilitator, with our guest speaker as well. So with that, I want to say thank you to you all, and we look forward to seeing you at the next Breakfast for Champions next month. And Marina, it was a privilege. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And Jody, a special shout out for making the connection, the warm introductions, which you talked about. And so thank you so much for that as well.
So maybe I'll just send out a little request. If you guys would, if you're on Instagram, please follow us on Instagram. It's eatsleepride.app, or we're also on Facebook and on Twitter. We're just at Eat Sleep Ride. Would love to, you know, have your support in spreading the word about what we're trying to do, make motorcycles more accessible. And we're always also, if you follow me on LinkedIn, you can find me. I'm always sharing entrepreneurial stuff on my LinkedIn and on my personal Twitter, which is at Marina Man.
Awesome.
Okay, so hey, Jody.
Hey, Marina, how are you doing?
Great. Jody was like a really big helped me out a lot. And so I just wanted to thank you for all of your help and all the work you do for entrepreneurs. You are awesome.
Thanks, you too.
Okay, bye you guys.
Awesome. Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.